I think Donald Trump is having a meltdown. I say that because if you've seen what he's been putting out on his own social media site, Truth Social, there's a giant spiral of what they call, instead of tweets, they call them truths, of what he's saying about Biden after he has been, publicly coming out saying, I'm no longer going to be the candidate for the Democratic Party when it comes to the presidency. And Trump, from the second that it came out, has been just ripping him to shreds and ripping Harris and then just going and saying all this nonsense. I think he's panicking. I think we're seeing a Donald Trump who is panicking. And so I wanted to go over what he said and why I think he's panicking, because I don't think we've ever seen this before. Now, I have to get this off my chest and just say right now that what we're seeing is kind of embarrassing for the United States. Look, Trump, you were going against Biden all these years. The guy bailed, okay? Just wish him luck and get ready for whoever you're going to next. Because right now, you just seem like you're being just upset that the easy win for you is now out. And I think that's what we're getting at. Before we break down what he says here, I think when it came to a Biden versus Trump kind of race, I think Trump would have won easily. And the reason why is because Biden was just too old. Biden didn't have the full support of the Democrats. He was kind of slow. And, while he was helping Ukraine and was doing a lot of great things for Ukraine, he just wasn't in a mindset to be strong. I mean, we saw that with the debate. And no offense to Joe Biden, but it was one of those things where just like Trump had said all these things that didn't make any sense, and he could have stopped him. Like, no, you didn't say that. You said this, you did that. He just kind of stood there. I mean, the only thing they fought about was golfing. It was like, oh, you guys sound like two old men just bickering. Like that, we don't need that as the president. And yeah, that was a little embarrassing. And, you say to yourself, okay, well, he's bailed out. Okay, he bailed out. Let's move on and Trump get ready. But Trump isn't doing that. He's just on a roll, ripping Joe Biden. And I would understand one tweet, it is what it is, but he was done. No, we're at what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? 10 truths since Biden pulled out just 24 hours ago, and every single one of them is ripping him. So the first one's not really a rip, but it's okay. Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president, and is certainly not fit to serve. He never was. He only attained the position of president by lies and fake news and not leaving his basement. Whatever. All those around him, including his doctor and media, knew he wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. And now look what he's done to our country. So you call him crooked, not fit to run for president. He should be bailing out now. He only has, 6 months left? He's going to finish his term out. He already bailed, okay? He's already saying, I don't want to do this anymore. From the get-go, he said he was a transitional president, and he said he was there just to get the party going until someone younger can come in. But since Donald Trump was going up again, Biden had beat him once, and so that's why he originally got the ticket. Now, that was one thing. And then he starts going on and on. Next one. Crooked Joe Biden is the worst president by far in the history of our nation. Not necessarily. Continues by saying he's done everything possible to destroy our country, from our southern border to energy dominance, which is like, what do you mean? He's pumped more gas and oil than you ever did. National security, international standing, and so much more. I don't know how he hurt us internationally. He didn't tell Russia to invade Ukraine. And actually, Russia was going to invade Ukraine in 2020, but then a pandemic happened. And that happened under Trump. So, and the whole thing with Israel. Trump says, well, Hamas would have never done that under me. There is absolutely no proof that that's true. Then he says he was not fit to serve from the very beginning, but the people around him lied to the Americans about the complete and total mental, physical, and Biden's demise. Okay. Then he says whoever the left puts up now will just be more of the same. Now, keep in mind that this was just an hour and a half after Biden had said that he was done. And at this point, he says, Crooked Joe just got knocked out, so now I'll have to do it a fourth time. Okay. He's just going and going. Then he says, does anyone really believe that Crooked Joe had COVID? No, he wanted to get out ever since June 27th, the night of the debate, where he was completely obliterated. But that was the big moment in Joe Biden's demise. That was the point in time when Joe was revealed for what he is, an incompetent man who should have never been president. Joe Biden is not fit to serve. He's destroying our country. And he just goes on and on, stuff like this. So we're forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden? He polls badly after having a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud, and that everyone around Joe, including his doctors and fake news media, knew he wasn't capable of running for or being president? Just asking. So now he's angry that he spent all this money to go against Joe, and now Joe's not in it anymore. So it's like, okay. And then things were quiet. Then this morning, he started back up with 4 more truths. It's a new day, and Joe Biden doesn't remember quitting the race yesterday. Another one. Who is running our country right now? It's not Crooked Joe. He has no idea where he is. If he can't run for office, he can't run our country. Then he's got other Republicans coming out saying that Biden should step down immediately, which is like, but then that means Harris would be president, and you guys don't want that either. He continues by saying Joe Biden will go down as the worst president in history of the United States. And then in caps, Kamala, our horrible and he just goes on, border czar will be worse. He's saying that she's incompetent and a border czar. Now, I do have to say, the border situation was a big fumble for the Democrats, and it is something that, definitely needed to be addressed, though they did build more wall than Trump, and Trump closed the border because of the pandemic. If there was no pandemic, the border would have still been open. Now, granted, it wouldn't have been as many people. Believe me, it wouldn't have been as many people, but still, come on. And then, finally, the last tweet from our truth from about an hour ago. The Democrats pick a candidate, Crooked Joe Biden. He loses the debate badly, then panics and makes a mistake after mistake and is told he can't win. And then they decide to pick another candidate, possibly Harris. They stole the race from Biden after he won in the primaries, a first. These people are a real threat to democracy. All of that within, I would say, 18 hours from when Biden announced he was stepping down. And it's like, dude, we get it. We get it. But like, Joe Biden has already said he's not running anymore. You're now running against whoever the Democrats decide. So stop it about Joe. You now need to prepare for whoever it's going to be. And I think this is why Trump has now started panicking, is because, A, he technically doesn't know who it's going to be. No one knows. Because the delegates could come in and decide someone completely different. And then the superdelegates could come in and override. And there could be a lot of things that happen down the line. So no one knows. The Congress doesn't know. The Democrats don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Your mom doesn't. No one knows who is going to be picked at this time. Though it is looking very likely that Harris is, since she just raised, I think, $51 million in one day. That is massive. And if she does get a nomination, it is very historic. The first African-American woman, the first Asian-American, that is big. And so moving forward, I think he's getting scared because he's saying she's getting a lot of support. Under Biden, Democrats were kind of on edge. They couldn't really technically decide, but now they can all come together and decide on one person. And if it is a female, African-American, Asian, that's going to pull a lot of votes from the Republican side. That alone, and the fact that Trump is now the old guy in this situation, means that Trump is going to have a hard time, because now he's got to debate her and she's going to be on her facts. And then he's the old guy in the situation. Because would you rather have in office? Someone who can actually stand up, or someone like Trump who's already told NATO countries that if you don't pay your percentage and Russia goes to attack you, well, you can go ahead and let Russia attack you. Which is like, no, that's an alliance. That's not the way that works. And I just want to add one more thing. Since we're talking about Harris, I want you to remember, when it comes to Russia, they want any possible way to win in Ukraine. And when it comes to Harris, they know that they're going to get more equipment to Ukraine. They're going to be able to fight off the Russians. And so they don't want Harris. When Trump announced that he picked J.D. Vance, the Kremlin came out and they said this is a great choice. And that's scary when Russia comes out and they say that's a good choice, because they know that's someone that is very pro-Russia. And J.D. Vance is. Well, he may not be pro-Russia, but he's anti-weapons to Ukraine, which doesn't make much sense to me, because we're going to be, we did all that time and money, and then out of nowhere we decided to pull out? That's a waste of a lot of things, a lot of equipment. Granted, the United States had made a lot of money on this war, and any American who doesn't understand that needs to understand that when the United States gets involved, it's never just to do the right thing. There's always a money side to it. Countries donated equipment to Ukraine with the promise from the United States they can buy equipment, whether it's aircraft, whether it's missiles, whether it's whatever. That's what that was. Just like right now, have European countries that are willing to sell stuff to Ukraine because they know they're going to get the assets from the frozen Russian assets, the windfall of that money, that would be given to them to make these weapons. And now they're all competing for that money because it's free money coming from Russia that Russia can't touch. There's a lot that goes in the war. And so J.D. Vance's comments make no sense, especially when the United States are doing pretty well because of this. And so today, now that Kamala is being endorsed by Biden and Clinton's and a couple other really top-end Democrats are coming out and saying that they don't like her because she said some mean things about them in the past. And the thing is, she's not wrong. Back in February, I think it was February 23rd, 2023, something like that. She gave an interview where she pretty much just said that, Russia's cruel. And Russia's like, well, we don't like those comments. The Kremlin came out, Dmitry came out and said that she had some unfriendly comments about Russia, and they don't like that. And it's like, gosh, you need to calm down. You need to calm down, because her exact words, I believe, were horrendous atrocities, gruesome, inhumane, and cruel. That's what she described Russia for the attacks that they did on civilians in Ukraine. And she's not wrong. We can all, as a world, agree what Russia is doing is absolutely wrong. And there is no reason whatsoever they should be allowed to continue doing this. And so for the Kremlin to come out and say that her comments were unfriendly and that they don't like that, it's like, well, then maybe, just putting this out there, maybe you don't attack civilians. Maybe you don't try to invade other countries. Maybe, big maybe, you leave Ukraine alone. You guys attacked a peaceful country that wanted nothing to do with you, and then you're upset that the world came through and said, no, Russia, don't do this. We don't agree with this. We don't like what you're doing. And then you're upset that the world is angry with you. Well, it's like, well, maybe if you stop doing these things will be okay. And I don't know if Putin's in his own world or if people are lying to him or what the heck he's doing. Maybe he doesn't own a TV or has access to the internet. But the world doesn't like Russia because of what they did in Ukraine. And prior to that, obviously they did things in Ukraine in 2014, but the world still kind of moved on after that. And in a way, we're okay with Russia in general. Obviously, what they did in Ukraine was awful, but the world was okay with them. And then they did this thing. It was like, why? Why? You don't need the land. You're already an absolutely large country. You don't need that stuff. You don't need those resources. But Russia wanted it. Back in 2014, when Obama was in office, they came to a peace agreement where Russia would only have Crimea. And that was that. If you guys stop here and take this part of the land and Crimea, if you stop there, okay, we're just going to start new. We're going to restart. That's what it was. It was a restart with the promise that Russia would never do that again. They did it again. It didn't work. It didn't work. And so any kind of promise that Russia puts on the table is not going to work. And I just want to jump back to a few days ago where we saw Boris Johnson go over to the United States to meet with Trump, because at that moment, it was very likely that Trump was going to win this election. And so Boris, who was very pro-Ukrainian, went over there to talk to him to be like, hey, look, we got to talk about Ukraine. You have to be able to support Ukraine. We have to be able to come up with something, because you can't let Russia win in this. I mean, the United States and Europe spent so much money when Russia is not going to stop. So if the United States pulls out or does some stupid deal, everyone's going to be angry with them. And people were angry with Johnson for going to see Trump, but we understand now was so that there could be some kind of like, hey, dude, we were friends. We got to talk. What you're talking about Ukraine, that we should end it within 24 hours. And before you need to sit down with Zelensky, have a conversation, talk about everything. And that's what's happening. Zelensky and Trump had a phone call. Then they, no agreement yet, but then they set something up to where down the line they can have an in-person thing. I don't know if that's in Ukraine or if it's in the United States or maybe in Florida. Who knows? But it's one of those things that Johnson had a long conversation with Trump to try to explain the situation in Ukraine and how Ukraine needs the United States. And if you were to cut this off, you would undo everything that has been done. And so he obviously put forward a plan that could, it does go in line with what Zelensky had said a while back. It's not 100% his plan, but something to get Trump okay with it. Now, we don't know if Trump is actually okay with it. We have to kind of wait and see. But the one thing I want to point out is the fact that under Biden, even though he has a whole board of advisors telling him what he can and can't do, it was his final say whether or not Ukraine can strike deep into Russia. And right now, that's still a no. They can strike just kind of north of Kharkiv, but that's about it. That's all they're able to do. And like last night, Ukraine had sent 75 drones. That's the only way they're able to attack Russia is with drones. But Ukraine knows where Russia is storing all their missiles, where they keep their aircraft, where they're launching these missiles from. And so if they had the permission to strike deep into Russia to take that out, then we don't need the 25 air defense systems that Ukraine talks about. We don't need as much support. We just need to take out those targets Russia can't buy anymore because Ukraine's taking out their oil refineries, which means they can't sell it to India and to China and North Korea. And so they don't have as much money. They can't buy as much weapons. And then the war comes to a halt. And that's what needs to be done. Now, I bring this up because under Kamala Harris, we technically don't know where she stands. As a vice president, you follow everything the president says. You don't want to go against him because it looks bad for your party and looks bad for the president if your vice president doesn't agree with you. And so under Biden, we're not striking far. We're not going deep. But under Harris, we don't know what her foreign policy is. We don't know if she'll come out and say, under me, we're going to allow Ukraine to strike deep and take out these things because, it will save the United States money. It will save lives of Ukrainians. And it's overall a better thing because then you're telling Russia, we're not playing anymore. We're done with this. Stop playing games with us. We need this to end. We don't know where Harris stands and all of that. And hopefully this week, it might be tomorrow, could be later on in this week, we'll get like a whole agenda of where she stands. Because Biden has his agenda. That agenda's out the window. We do know that she is loosely following that. Once again, we don't really know because under Biden, some of his donors were pulling out for certain policies. And so I think that she's now meeting with everyone, figuring out where she sits on her policies, what would work. And while that's going on, I think it's funny because Trump from the beginning could have came out and said, I will work with Zelensky. We'll come up with a peace plan that will be beneficial for Ukraine and restore X, Y, and Z. And he would have gotten the vote for a lot of Democrats. But he doesn't do that. He's more concerned about his best pal, Putin. And that is one area where Trump will lose a lot of voters. Because he could have done all these things. He could have been the voice of reason here and stood up against Putin. And being a former president, he could have done this kind of stuff, but he didn't. And that made him look bad. And even right now, even though he's got a phone call with Zelensky done, and an in-person meeting happening in the future, he needs to understand what's going on. Because if he's got the same exact shields that Putin has to the news, then it's going to be a big problem, especially if he is elected president come November. And that's a big if, because right now, looking at the polls, I think they have it at Trump at 46%, and Harris on the other end. And it's like, ooh. And by the way, those in between, it's like 46 and 45 and in between other candidates. And it almost looks like neck and neck. And Kamala hasn't even started campaigning. She's not even the nominee yet. That's the thing. We still have until August, 19th? About a month, a little less than a month for the Democrats to figure out who it's going to be. But from the looks of it, anyone else who'd be kind of coming forward to try to get those delegates are saying, no, I'm not doing that. And, we could be seeing a Harris versus Trump situation, which would be very interesting. I actually think that the Democrats have changed the tide by doing this. I think it's a good move for the Democrats. We'll see where it lands, whether it be Trump or Harris, but I think that Harris would be the nominee. And when it goes against Trump, I really think she actually has a chance of beating him. And I think that's why Trump is starting to panic. I truly do. And especially if she comes out and we'll let Ukraine do this, this, and this. Or we'll let Israel do that. If she comes out strong with these things, once again, all depends on her policy. She can come out weak. She can come out weak with her policies, and then she'll end the whole thing right there, and it will go right to Trump. We don't know. And we also don't know if she's the nominee yet. There's still a lot floating around, but what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. I'm Joey. Stay safe. See you later. Bye.